Hello there. In this video I'm going to show you how you can use the Blender application template FluidDesigner for 3D printing to create pendants and earrings. So I'm assuming you've got Blender and you've installed our application. So what we're going to do is to go to the object library, and there are folders for earrings and pendants, but I'm going to show you how you can use some of the other patterns. I'm going to use a Harrington font to create a pendant, and then from that an earring. So I'm going to use A, I'm going to add a B, note the overlap, and I'm also going to add a C. Now these are all parametric smart objects, they're all curves, they're all the same cross section. We can see that over here in the bevel object as 1 by 2, 1 by 2, 1 by 2. Now if we hold down the shift key, or just switch on screencast keys, hold down the shift key and highlight all three objects. If I do to Tools, Object Tools and Join, I can join all those objects together. And what I would tend to do at this point also is to set the origin to the geometry and go to Tools, Cursor, and to snap the selection to Cursor. So what I've done is just position the ABC in the very heart of the screen there. Now if we wanted to change the thickness of this, what we would do is add another bevel object. So if I go to Object Library and the first folder there, 3D Templates Cross Sections, so if I select that folder, that library, there are special bevel objects for bracelets and rings, but I'm going to use this cross-section rectangular bevel object here. So I just click OK and just place it somewhere in the center of my screen. Now if I open up the Properties panel, if I make sure I highlight that new object, you can see that it's got dimensions of 1mm by 1mm. So if I highlight my ABC now the default cross section for all of our objects is 1 by 2. This is the new bevel object that I've just added, this rectangular bevel object. When I select that, notice that my pendant changes to the size of the bevel object, in other words to 1 by 1. So if I go to that object now, and if I change the Y dimension, you can see I can change the thickness. I'm just dragging the mouse here, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to set that at 2mm thick, and I'm actually going to change my X dimension to 0.8mm to try and keep my metal thickness down. So I know exactly what the cross section of this is now. Now if I look at this, the ring inside the A there with these settings might fall out. So what I would tend to do is to highlight the ABC and go into edit mode and highlight a couple of control points and switch off the snap, and I would just reposition that ring slightly so there's definitely some overlap. I might also at the top of the letter B here want to pull that point up, so I just highlight one control point, and I could also pull one to the left there, and just to make sure that there is complete overlap and no bits are going to fall apart when we 3D print this. Now to complete this as a pendant, what I need is a ring at the top. So if I go to Object Library, we find these under Jewelry Findings, and if I'm making a pendant I would probably add a ring with an internal diameter of 2.5mm, and we just position that at the top there. And if I just hold down the shift key and highlight the pendant and go to Tools, Object Tools and Join, that will actually join that ring so that it's fully connected to our pendant now. So we've got one solid object. Now to get this to 3D print, what we'd normally do is to go to File and Export, either as OBJ as STL, but what you must do is run it through Netfabb Basic as well. Okay, so that's how easy it is to create a pendant. Now if I wanted to actually create an earring out of this, if I go to View and Top View, first thing I'd want to do is to remove the ring at the top. So if I just highlight one control point, and if I just hold down the Control key and press plus, I can highlight all the 9 control points in that ring at the top, and if I press X on the keyboard I can actually remove that. Now the other thing I'd want to do is that at the moment, if I open up the Properties panel, the height of this, the Y dimension is 4.19 centimeters, in other words about 42mm. That's going to be a bit too big in terms of weight for my earring, so I want to scale this down. Now it's very important you go into edit mode, select all the control points, and you use S to scale in edit mode. If you don't scale in edit mode, the cross section won't be correct anymore in relation to our bevel object. So once you've scaled it, so I've scaled it down to 20 millimeters approximately, which is more or less what our grid is. And you can see that the Z dimension is still 2 millimeters, and that's based on the bevel object, which is 2 millimeters. So if I just change that, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce that to 1 millimeter. So I know exactly that the dimensions of this are 0.8 millimeters by 1 millimeter, and I know for certain if I upload that to Shapeways that it will pass their test and will 3D print. So that's the beauty of using the parametric smart objects. Now the next thing I would want to do is to add a little ring at the top, so that I can hang it from my ear. And again, we go to jewelry findings, and for earrings I tend to use this first finding, this ring with an internal diameter of 1.5 millimeters. So we just click OK and just place that so that it's overlapping, and then hold down the Shift key, highlight ABC, go to Tools, Object Tools, and Join. So there's my earring now, and I know what the dimensions are of it. It's about 2.19 centimeters, 22 millimeters, and I'm fairly confident that that's the weight of that's going to be okay as an earring. Now if you wanted to add a gem to this, what I'm going to do is to reposition the letter C so that it's just centered around the cursor point here. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Jewel Craft. So if you've got Jewel Craft on your system, what you could do is you could add an oval emerald. And if I just move that screen down a bit, and so if I just add an oval gem, that's placed in the center of the screen there. Now that one is 1 millimeter, so I'm going to try a different size. I'm going to try 5 millimeters. That's probably not quite big enough, so I'll try 6 millimeters. So if I put a 6 millimeter gem there, now what's important here is keep the earring centered about the grid there. Don't move the earring. Highlight the gem and just pull the gem up until you've got it in a suitable position. And if I go back to view and top view, and if I now go to jeweling, if I add some prongs to my gem there, now you can see I've actually been a little bit lucky there that the prongs have gone neatly into my earring. Now perhaps if I'd have been a bit unlucky, I might have positioned my earring like that so that the prong here is in the right position, but the prong at the bottom isn't quite in the right position. So one way of doing it is to move the whole object like that. But the other thing about these parametric smart objects is if I go into edit mode with the ABC selected, if I just select a couple of control points at the bottom there, notice I can move, reposition just part of the C so that it overlaps and positions correctly with my prong. And that's a really neat feature of using these parametric smart objects. If you're using meshes here, not so easy to do. Okay, so that's how easy it is to convert my pendant into an earring. And now if you actually wanted to double check what the weight of this is, if you actually highlight the earring and go to Tools, Object Tools, and convert it to a mesh, you do need to convert it to a mesh first. In Gemcraft, if you go to weighting and if you click load, it allows you to find the weight. You can calculate the weight of all sorts of different metals, and so if you click the calculate button, it'll calculate the weight there, and they're all about between 1 and 2 grams there, depending upon the metal. So that's one way of actually checking the weight of this object, but you have to change it from a curve to a mesh first of all. Okay, so if you're interested in seeing what other sorts of jewellery items we've created with Fluid Designer for 3D printing, if you go to our Shapeways site at Shops Fluid Designer, there are lots of pendants and earrings and other items that you can look at, and they've all been created with this app using Blender. Okay, so thank you for watching.